I love you.
What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic, and everything Chicago sports-related podcast. Today is February 23rd, 2024. It's like Christmas if you're a baseball fan, especially if you're a Cubs fan. Spring training Chicago Cubs baseball is officially underway as the Chicago Cubs defeat the Chicago White Sox 8-1 in the opening game series for spring training 2024. It was everything we wanted it to be. If you're a Cubs fan right now, spring training, hearing Boog, hearing JD, hearing all these guys coming back into the facilities, coming back into the fold, seeing new faces, seeing old faces. I even saw a David Bodie sighting today, which was crazy. Every 6 months, I get reminded that David Bodie is still on the Chicago Cubs, which is crazy. And it's no disrespect to Bodie, but you just never hear about him. And then you see him in spring training, or you see him every now and again. But in all seriousness, man, getting right back into it, we understand what today meant for the Chicago Cubs organization. You win 8-1 against the South Side, so that's always a great feeling. But in all seriousness, though, we understand what we have right now. We understand where we want to go and how we're going to get there. The core is as real as ever. I mean, what we're looking at right now is a duplicate of what we saw in 2013 to 15. I think that's really the real conversation we're supposed to be having right now. The Rizzo, Bryant, Baez's of the world, Schwarbers, Russells, guys like that are here, and we need to start taking that very seriously. We talked about it all offseason long about what this core was going to mean for the Chicago Cubs going into 2024, the Owen Caseys, the James Triantoses, the Pete Crow Armstrongs, the Matt Shaws of the world, the Kevin Alcantaras, all these different guys. We're going to continue to have those conversations about what they're going to bring and what they're going to potentially be. And I've had the pleasure of talking to a few of them, the James Triantos, Liam Spence, Ben Brown, Brennan Davis, guys like that all the time, and, picking their brain about what it's like having so many bodies in this facility at once. You have over probably 40 guys on here right now who could potentially be on this roster, who could not. And then obviously you have the guys who are solidified going to be a part of the organization. But it's been a blast, man. It's been an absolute phenom. I have a few opinions before we get into the entire game. First, I just want to say shout out to the camera crew, because it was such beautiful baseball that we saw today on the Marquee Network, that we saw all over. It was just beautiful angles, beautiful results. We got to see the best versions of everybody all day long, especially when you got guys like Pete Crow Armstrong flying around. It's hard to keep up with them. So shout out to the camera crew at spring training, because they were getting their money's worth today. But in all seriousness, man, let's get into it. First inning was absolutely crazy. We saw Ian Happ back at the leadoff spot, which I thought was very critical. We've seen him do that before, obviously in the Joe Madden era and very early on in the David Ross era when we still had Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez. We saw him at that leadoff spot. Last year we didn't. He was more at the 3-4 hole just because of the lack of production offensively in 2023 compared to his all-star season in 2022. So, we're starting to see Ian come in there in the first inning, first knock, first at-bat. You love to see that from him, really getting after it, really doing what he needs to do. Leadoff single was exactly where this team needed to be. Now, following that was Christopher Morel batting second at third base. That's the talk of the town right now. Craig Counsell was asked about it. Is it a long-term answer? Maybe, maybe not. We'll just have to see what happens. But defensively, the second out of the bottom of the first, he was absolutely phenomenal. I loved what we saw from him today. I think there was one of those conversations to where you have to look at him and say, until he shows you messing up at a consistent rate, how could you not have him at third base every day, unless there's a guy like Matt Shaw, BJ Murray in front of him. And at this point in time, they're not, but we're going to get into Matt Shaw in a little bit. But Morel with a home run, absolutely phenomenal. Morel makes it 2-0, brings in Ian Happ. It's the start of the game, and this offense ends up going throughout the entire lineup back to Ian Happ. They get 10 batters in the first inning alone, ending the inning with Ian Happ out in the second go around. But you're already up 5-0 in the first inning. So this Cubs offense was absolutely phenomenal. Pete Crow Armstrong gets a knock in the first inning as well, which is very key. We know how he ended September last year in the majors with a 40-man roster, 0 for 10, wasn't able to get one in. We saw him in the Colorado game. He was very frustrated. But, it's one of those conversations to where it's going to take a while. It's going to take some time. Now, we know what he is running the bases. We know what he can be defensively. One of the better defensive center fields in all of baseball, not even in this complete pipeline right now. Like, he is an absolute phenom. So I'm really excited to see what he could potentially be offensively. That's really the question for me, is who is he going to be come the end of the season? Is this a guy who's going to be batting 240 or below, or is this a guy who's going to take that next step and offensively be a juggernaut? We see the blue hair. I know so many people hate it. I like it. But I also come with this. You know what I mean? It's fun to be swag. It's fun to be dope. It's fun to be the next, the hottest thing since pants with pockets. You're already like that. You know what I mean? He's got the ego. He's not in a bad way either. He's got the ego. He carries himself very well. He's electrifying, but how can you help this ball club win games offensively? That's going to be the big key for him going into 2024. We know what he is defensively. We know what he is on the base pass. How are you going to help bring in runs and get on base, your OBP, your OBS, everything that comes with it, your slugging, everything? How are you going to help contribute to this team? That's the big thing for Pete Crow Armstrong this year. I'm excited about it, man. But we got a knock in. He got hit by another pitch as well, straight in the back, which is, I felt it in my soul just watching that happen. It takes me back to the days of me playing. But, I think at the end of the day, what we saw from him was very interesting. One of the more interesting things for me, though, was his second or third at bat. It's 2 outs. Craig Counsell calls for the bunt. It's a failed bunt opportunity for PCA, but Craig was very vocal about wanting to see PCA bunt more. We saw a little bit of that last year in the Colorado series, and just overall, I don't know how I completely feel about it, especially when there's 2 outs. It's 2 outs. What are we doing? Why are we bunting? It doesn't really make a lot of sense to why he's bunting in that position. To me, I think at the end of the day, you have to look at it for what it is and understand that they're trying to put PCA in positions to where he's going to continue to be the best version of himself and continue to get that big league at bat. They talked about it. 21 years old right now. He would be, a junior, senior in college. So he completely skipped the college level. Obviously, he's with the Mets organization, gets traded over here. So there's been a lot of change, and there hasn't been a lot of time for him to just get his feet under him. That's something for me that I think with Pete that I really want to see him get after is just feeling comfortable at the plate. I don't see that yet. At the minor league level, I see it. I saw it in person covering the AAA affiliate for the Iowa Cubs last year. But, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of questions about who he's going to be in the big league level offensively. You know what I mean? 0 for 10, I understand, is a small sample size, especially when you're climbing through the rankings all year from AA, AAA, all the way to the majors. We saw the same thing with Matt Mervis in 2022, or 2023. So I think that's one of the big things for me with Pete right now is, you're bunting and it turns into a double. Don't get it twisted. Right after the failed bunt, it turns into a double. He gets his first knock. But with 2 outs, I've questioned why we have him bunting with 2 outs. You kind of just want to see him be the best version of himself. And I feel like you're putting him in an opportunity to fail when it comes to that. Now, that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure Craig just wants to get his feet under him, really just wants to see him and what he's capable of doing. Obviously, David Ross had that experiment, but Craig's a whole new manager, a whole new mind, so he probably sees it a different way and wants to see it for himself. But with that being said, man, I liked what we saw from Pete. I liked what we saw from Ian. Obviously, Christopher Morel, I didn't spend too much time talking about him just because we pretty much already know what Christopher Morel is. This is a guy who hit over 25 home runs last year in less than 110 games played. If he plays 130 to 150 games, you're looking at a guy who's going to pump in 40 home runs a year. So that's just really what it is. Defensively, we didn't get to see too much from him at third base today as he was playing. There just wasn't a lot of opportunities. Obviously, the second out of the first inning, he got that play, and it wasn't bad. It was a grounder straight to third. He made the routine play, and it was great. But, there's not a lot to go off of. Somebody I'm really excited to go talk about right now is Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw was phenomenal today, had 2 hits and 3 at-bats. He's one of those guys that I'm really excited about seeing continue to develop. Obviously, drafted in 2023, they bring him in as a third baseman, the king of grand slams. He's one of those guys, though, that I think could potentially get caught up in where he's going to be playing. You know what I mean? Like today they had him batting 9th, playing second base. Traditionally, he's the third baseman. So why are you playing second base? You know what I mean? That's the question. And that's really to just fill in the lineup spot. Right now, as it is, Christopher Morel will be playing third base every day for the Chicago Cubs. That's how they're viewing it right now, at least for this season. They haven't spoke about the foreseeable future, the BJ Murrays, the Matt Shaws, the Matt Chapmans of the world. Who knows? Inevitably when they bring back Chris Bryant, no, I'm playing. But in all seriousness, I see what Matt is able to do offensively. You know what I mean? Like, he ended the season last year from single A all the way to double A, and he was absolutely phenomenal, batting over 320 on the year. So we saw what he can be, and he's doing it at a solid level today. You know what I mean? I understand it's Jesse Chavez, former Cub. It's kind of towards the end of his career, but you're still hitting against major league level pitching. So I loved what we saw from Matt today. Hits a double with a 1 RBI in the first inning. You loved seeing that from him right away, wearing number 77. Luka had to give that some love. But yeah, it really was great to see that from Matt Shaw. Matt Shaw is one of those guys that I have very, very, very detailed information about when it comes to scouting him and who I think he could potentially be. I think you could look at him as a DH, as a third baseman, as a second baseman. You could really plug him in anywhere in the infield or even at the DH position. But I'm excited to see what he could potentially be and who he could potentially grow into become. This could be a potential fan favorite. I have a comment right here really quickly because I want to read these comments in, whether you're on TikTok or Facebook, wherever you're watching this. What about Matt? What about Brennan Davis? Brennan Davis did not have a great day. Unfortunately, he did not get a hit today. He did not do much of anything today. He did get a walk. So I will give him that. But Brennan's really in this position right now to where he needs to make the most opportunities out of every single at bat. You know what I mean? So Brennan coming off of back surgery in 2022. 2023 was really one of those years where you want to see the best version of him possible. You know what I mean? You want to see him get fully healthy, so then the best ability is availability. We always know that, but then you have to show up when you're available. You know what I mean? And last year he finishes the year with 5 home runs, 30-something RBIs, and single A or I believe he was in all 3 phases, single, double, and triple A. You want to see him be fully healthy this year. You know what I mean? You want to see him be able to continue to develop. And yeah, he was the number 1 overall prospect back in 2021, 2022. Actually, after the back surgery, he kind of climbs back down. For 2023, he was ranked, I believe, 19th. And this year, they haven't officially come out with the rankings yet. That's still going to go as spring training continues. But I'd imagine he's anywhere from like 11 to 20 right now in this Cubs system. It's unfortunate, man. It truly is. It's one of those conversations to where, you want to see him have success, but you also understand there's so many people in front of you as well. So there's the Owen Casey's, there's the Kevin Alcantara's, there's the Pete Crow Armstrongs. That's just at the prospect level. You know what I mean? You look at it in the major league level. There's Ian Happ, there's Seiya Suzuki. Maybe Cody comes back. Maybe he doesn't. Mike Talkman's there. There's a lot of guys that are in front of you. So, I want to see him really just get his feet under him and get productive at bats. I think that's really what you're looking for from a guy like Brennan Davis right now. I still believe in him, and I still think he has a lot of opportunities to have success, whether that's at AAA or at the major league level. Only time's going to tell, though. You know what I mean? It takes a lot to get under you and really get the best version of yourself possible, especially when you have so many guys already fully healthy, already having a full off season. It's going to be hard, but I'm excited about it. Now, starting the game, though, I want to talk about the pitching for a second because we're talking about all the bats. Jordan Wicks starts off the game, has a phenomenal first inning, starts the game off with a strikeout, finishes the first inning great. Second inning, gives it up to a former In Off the Bench podcast guest, Tim Elko, who I had the pleasure of interviewing with Jim Cross. Great guy, actually. I just texted him. He texted me back. I have to get back to him in a little. Great guy, amazing individual, captain of college baseball. I mean, this is the guy you want. Phenomenal mustache. But, in all seriousness, he rips one off Jordan Wicks. And, that's one of those things where it's like, okay, what are we going to be able to do this spring training to see who's going to make the 5-man rotation? And I want to get into that because of this exact reason. Jordan Wicks is going to make the rotation. There's no doubt about it. He had a great first inning, not a great second inning, and it's just the first game. You know what I mean? So no one's really taking too much into it. But what I do want to take into it is when someone has success, it's a different conversation than when someone does poorly. Now, we have a larger scale and a larger workload of a guy like Jordan Wicks. We have so much film to base it off of. We know what he is. We know what he can be. But coming into the third inning, Caleb Killian made some noise, and I loved what we saw from Caleb Killian. Caleb Killian was phenomenal today. In the third inning, in 9 pitches, gets 3 outs. I mean, absolutely great. Fourth inning, same thing. Not nine pitches, but still a great inning. He does what he needs to do in 2 innings pitched. He was exactly what we expected him to be and what we always look at him to be. He's great with the velocity. He's great with the velo stuff. His placement is great. Everything from Caleb Killian today was phenomenal. He was absolutely dominant. He's one of those guys that I'm still excited about. There's the Hayden Wesneskis and the Caleb Killians that are kind of getting overseen by Cade Horton, Jordan Wicks, Ben Brown. But he's definitely still very much alive. He's definitely still making a case that he could potentially crack this rotation or in this bullpen spot going into 2024. Now, 2023 and 2022 was absolutely horrid for him. But I think at the end of the day, what you need to look at is who he could potentially be at the end of the day going into September. You know what I mean? Who is he right now? We'll have to see. But who is he going to be throughout an entire workload of an entire work of body? You know what I mean? A body of work, pardon me. Looking at a complete body of work throughout a season. You saw what Jordan Wicks could be in the second half of last year. I don't know who he's going to be in Caleb Killian throughout the entire season, but great start. You know what I mean? Really picked up where Jordan Wicks left off. I think that's really going to be the conversation is who's going to make this rotation, who's going to be right outside of it, kind of like a Javier Assad role. Sometimes you're Albert Alzolay even earlier on before 2023. Sometimes you're starting, sometimes you're coming out the pen, trying to figure out what's best for you. So I loved what we saw today. We saw a little bit of Kevin Alcantara in the outfield. Didn't get a hit today. We saw Owen Casey, who was able to get on base. You love to see that. Those are still two guys that I'm very high on. Alcantara and Casey are going to be great. Those are the two duo guys that I think are going to lead this outfield for years to come. Obviously, Matt Shaw was the talk of the town. Christopher Morel was the talk of the town. But we saw a lot today, man. And we really did. We didn't get a chance to see Nico or Dansby or Seiya, but we got a chance to see the young guns. We got a chance to see Ian Happ kind of get his legs back under him. That's why Ian's playing in this game today, is to really try to get him in the best position possible. Morel's there, obviously, to play third base every day. And Ian's probably just trying to find his stride within the lineup and get back to who he was. And obviously, Craig's giving him opportunity to do so. Now, obviously, before we get out of here, we have to have a little bit of a Cody Bellinger talk because everybody wants to talk about him. But, Carter Hawkins was very vocal about, there's still ongoing conversations. They're not completely out on Cody Bellinger, but from what we understand is this is like talking to a wall. You know what I mean? Like the Scott Boras family, the Scott Boras tree line of all these agents, like it's horrible, man. It's horrible. And it's not just Cody. It's Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, Matt Chapman, Chris Bryant, Jake Arrieta, Bryce Harper. We've seen this time and time again. And this is one of the more weird ones to me. It was easier for Bryce Harper to get $400 million than it was Cody Bellinger to get $2 million. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But, at the end of the day, man, I'm curious to see where those guys all land. I'm curious to see what potentially happens and how these guys continue. But before we get out of here, I want to say I appreciate everybody tuning in today. We're going to be doing more work with my guy, Michael Powers at Fox Sports Philly. We're going to be doing more work with In Off the Bench podcast. Of course, if you're new here, hit that follow button for everything Chicago Cubs, everything MLB-related content. We're going to be going all year long. This is just game one of many more to come. We have at least 162 games to play this season. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens. But until then, I'll check you guys out later. Be safe, be lovely, and we'll be in there like swimwear tomorrow, baby.
I love you.